So, hey, my viewers, we have a very special guest, Joseph Matthews, and I would request him to give his introduction so that we can avail of the opportunity.
Thank you for the invitation to participate. I've been looking forward to this since we started corresponding. I'm Joseph, and the connection here is language learning. I started out as a starry-eyed child, a young, teenager, wanting to learn another language, and so I studied German in high school. But it didn't work out very well because they taught me a lot of grammar and vocabulary. So years later, when I went to Austria, I couldn't buy groceries. I couldn't function. But I was working in a university. People were very kind, and they were not surprised that an American didn't speak German. And so they helped me. They spoke to me. And I learned, but I was only there for 3 months. When I came back to the United States, I looked for content like what you and I make. I looked for something that would allow me to continue growing, but I had to wait for technology to catch up with my needs.
Right.
Now, during the pandemic, you remember the pandemic, it was a mess, and we had a lot of time on our hands. I did. So I did a lot of reading. I read great literature, and I got the idea that it was time to learn a language. Living in California, I chose Spanish because I like the way Spanish sounds. I like the culture that I have seen, and I just wanted to embrace it. So I found comprehensible input. I found Stephen Krashen on YouTube and was fascinated because he was telling me something that matched my experience when I was living in Austria. I learned when I understood what other people were saying to me. In Austria, people were speaking a little slower. They were speaking clearly. And when I didn't understand, they would say it in other words. So they were feeding me comprehensible input. But at the time, I didn't know what it was called. Since 2023, I've listened to 2,600 hours of Spanish. Entonces yo hablo español. I can now speak Spanish. I can understand a lot. The trouble with that is it created in me the wish to contribute. As a language learner, I couldn't contribute by teaching Spanish or German, but I could make content in English. So in 2024, I launched Input English, and it's pure comprehensible input. I don't teach grammar. I don't teach vocabulary. I've made almost 500 videos. They average 21 minutes. And I do on my videos what people have done for me. Speak a little slower, speak clearly, don't use a lot of slang, and frequently say things more than one way so that people can find it, can figure out what it means.
Right.
So that's in a nutshell. I'm a simple YouTube content creator who is very driven to help people embrace a very interesting, complicated, and crazy language that they taught me as a child.
Right. Got you. So basically, you are an American. Am I right?
I was born in Philadelphia, and I grew up on the East Coast. I've lived all over the United States. So I've lived in the Midwest, in the South, in California. We've been in California for more than 20 years now.
Yeah, got it. So captivating to know everything from you. And I think that for you, COVID was like a blessing in disguise, isn't it?
I made a video that said that. Now, I don't want to be flip about COVID. It killed a lot of people. It was horrible. It was miserable. But that cloud had a silver lining for me. It changed my life. I read books that I would have never read. I was trained as a math and science guy, and so I never read great literature. So COVID, I took a headfirst dive right into the great literature of the Western canon. I didn't read world literature. I read English language literature and good translations.
Right. So true that every cloud has a silver lining. And during COVID period, though, is was the worst period of our lives. Yet we can say that we had enough time to introspect and we found our way how to get progress in our life. Moreover, how to fulfill our dreams in one way or the other. That's so true. Do you think that using more idioms and phrases, like people, they are so crazy about using idioms and phrases, especially advanced vocabulary, to sound fluent? So, how much truth is there in this matter?
Even some slang adds a lot of richness to the language, and it does make people sound more native like, although I'm not I'm not trying to. What I said in a video is that there are two kinds of people who need to sound like a native speaker: actors and spies. Everybody else can have a lovely accent and can say things in their own way. And as long as they communicate and they're respectful, it'll be fine. But to your point, I embed a lot of sayings, expressions, idioms in my content, but I don't want to teach word lists. I don't want to teach things explicitly. I want to put it in context. So I'll give you a preview. I'm making a video tomorrow about Friday the 13th, and we're going to talk about superstitions and belief systems. And I have to be careful. I need to be respectful of people's beliefs. I'm not sitting on a bully pulpit laying down the law of the way people should believe, but I'm going to talk about superstitions because Friday is Friday the 13th, and in the US, there's a lot of superstition surrounding the number 13, and in particular, Friday the 13th. So I embed a lot of that in my content.
Absolutely. It's the matter of choice and preference. If we want to go along with the basic structures, it's good. But if we want to skip to advanced vocabulary, it's just a matter of choice. And I also personally feel that everything has to be natural and we must use in context. That's very important. Clarity and be natural, be authentic. That is what that is what matters in it. I think so. And as you were talking about the accent, so how important is accent for non-native English speakers like me? Like every time we grope in the dark that should we use American accent, should we use British accent or Australian accent, we non-native speakers. So I would just like you to reflect on this matter. How much accent is important?
Opinions differ. I'll give you my take on it. I want good pronunciation. I'm not trying to impersonate a native speaker. I like the pronunciation of Spanish that they use in Spain. So I knew that if I listened to a lot of content from creators in Spain, I would pick up their method of speaking, their pronunciation, some of their accent. And I know that from my own experience. So I lived in Austria. I was in Styria, in what they call the Steiermark, Styria. And that's down south. And the capital city is Graz. That's where Arnold Schwarzenegger is from. And so they speak German in a very particular way. The people I was around in the university were mostly Austrians, and they spoke an Austrian style. So this is the input I got every day for 3 months. So when I came back to California, I met a lady who was from Germany. This was at work, and and she was talking, and I said, "Oh, you're from Germany, aren't you?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And then I switched into German, and I just said a couple of sentences, and she kind of politely laughed, and she said, "You have an Austrian accent." I took that as a huge compliment. I expected her to say, "You have a terrible flat American accent." But instead, she said, "You have an Austrian accent." I had picked up, well, she was being kind, but I had picked up the pronunciation of the people at the university and at the pub and at, various places at the stores. So I think we can improve our pronunciation. We can make our pronunciation more native like, but I'm
Right.
not sure I'm not sure how important that is. As long as you're communicating. If someone has a very thick accent and they're hard to understand, that's quite another thing. The other side of this is English has become the lingua franca for traveling the world and speaking to people around the world. When I was at the university, I spoke a little German and a lot of English, but I listened to a lot of German. But the other international visitors in that department while I was there were from Egypt. And they spoke English very well, but their pronunciations were not super. I could understand them very well, but the Austrians couldn't because we had two different people, Austrians and Egyptians, trying to use English as the lingua franca, and the pronunciations made it hard for them to understand each other. And they noticed that I would say something to the Austrians that was the same as what they had just said, and they would understand me because my pronunciations were more native like. No surprise there. I just think we need great pronunciation. I'm not trying to fool anybody.
Yeah, sure. So we must practice whatever accent we choose. We must practice. We must listen to the podcast regarding that accent. The ultimate goal is to sound natural, not fake. But because it sounds very frustrating, it sounds very irritable when we impersonate, when we follow the fake accents. So what matter in the end is clarity, because speaking is all about communication. That's so true. Nowadays, people are giving a lot of importance to grammar. Some people, they say that grammar is not at all important. What's your take on it? That does grammar play a substantial role in learning this language, spoken English especially?
I think there's a difference between explicitly studying grammar and ignoring it. I don't ignore grammar. Grammar is super important if you want to be understood. However, it has been shown in studies that if you study a bunch of grammar rules, you typically don't retain it. So I learned my Spanish grammar by listening to huge amounts of content. And then the patterns started to click. And so I was speaking to someone at a party not too long ago, a few months ago, and they were surprised at the advanced grammar that I had used in the past tense, that I was specific to whether it was something I had done a long time ago in the past or whether it was something I did at a specific time. And I used the right grammar, but I never studied it explicitly. I just used the patterns that I learned from input.
Right. So I also believe that comprehensible input is far more important than considering it as, doing everything consciously. So we should not be so much conscious. So to destroy the beauty of learning this language. Because we are not going especially to take the exam. This is just a matter of spoken English. The more we the more we listen to the content, the better we will be by each passing day. Piece of advice you would give to Indian learners who understand English, they can read English, but when it comes to speak English, they actually freeze, their mind goes blank. So, what's your take on it? Why their mind goes blank? I mean, they are so, they feel so devastated.
I've been there. You just described me. You described my experience and a lot of other people's experience. When we learn languages explicitly and we study grammar and vocabulary, it's very hard to retrieve. It's hard to bring it up. And we're so busy thinking, let's see, past tense, how do I do that? And then, oh no, how do I conjugate that? And that's the way I tried to learn German decades ago. Now I've started listening to German again, but I'm doing it with pure input. The nice thing about comprehensible input is it meets you where it finds you. So people in India who read and write English and just want to improve and they can understand a lot of English, you're in a golden position because if you add hundreds or maybe thousands of hours of input over a period of time, you will be impressed. I made a video months ago called the 300-hour rule. And it begins simply. It's not a rule, it's an observation that if you make a mental note of where you are with the language and you add 300 hours of good input that you can understand, you can follow the story, you can follow the discussion. If you add 300 hours, you'll be impressed. Things will be different. You will improve. The other thing that is a problem for adult learners that children don't worry about is we worry about mistakes. I admit it, I'm a perfectionist. I have battled perfectionism all my life. And so it's very hard to expose myself to making errors. But with comprehensible input and language learning, we have to embrace ambiguity. We have to understand we're not going to know everything and we're going to make mistakes. And making mistakes is part of the path. So I'd say you're in a very good position if somebody already reads and writes the language, already can understand a lot, just pile on the input. And really, my channel, for instance, is really a bridge to native content because a lot of people will have trouble listening to native content, but they tell me in the comment section they can understand what I am saying. So I built a bridge.
So true. After listening to you, I can easily claim that mastering fluency in English is not at all elusive. It may be low-hanging fruit, but we need to be consistent all the time. We need to keep everything slow down. Don't rush. Take your own time. Listen to whatever you want to listen. Don't compare with others. If you want to listen to audiobooks, listen to audiobooks. If you want to listen to stories, simple stories, children's stories, fables, listen to it. The ultimate target is just to not only understand, but follow the pattern of comprehensible input. And I love your videos for that all the time. I watch your videos, I watch Steve videos, and I'm getting so much into your videos that I can't imagine my life without watching this kind of stuff. So yes, listening to listening to videos helped me a lot. And I also can say that you listen to it, but after listening, you need to understand the pattern of comprehensible input. Try to speak also, try to note down those idioms and phrases, try to summarize whatever you have found in the video. If you have found something important, try to use it next time. Don't let it confine in your subconscious mind or unconscious mind. Otherwise, it will be never on board and we can't use it. So, Sir Joseph, I just want to know your feedback about this meeting. Did you enjoy this quick call with me?
I did. I did. This is fascinating. It's a lovely conversation, and we are like minded. We're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to share something with a lot of people, and I'm enchanted.
Thank you so much for joining me and giving me this opportunity to connect with you.